Good morning. It's April 1st and April Fool's Day. I was thinking of the two best April Fool's pranks that were pulled in my family that I can recall. One happened when I was in maybe junior high or elementary school. My older brother, Larry, was sitting in the aisle position in our pew at church. And so we were at church, and my dad was the usher that day, and so since my brother was close to the aisle, he could get my dad's attention. And my dad was carrying the offering plate because it was time to receive the offering in church. And as he was coming from the altar, the front of the church, down to the back of the church, my brother, as I recall, motioned to him that he had something important to tell him. And he told my dad that his zipper was broken. And so it was rather humorous then, as my dad held the offering plate down in his waist area, crotch area, so that he could hide what he thought was a broken zipper. He brought the offering plates back up to the altar, walked back, sat down with us, and realized there was nothing wrong with this zipper at all. And I don't recall if there was any consequences for that April Fool's joke, but it was a good one. The other joke that my daughters played on me, they were maybe second grade and fourth grade, and it was March 31st, and they spent a little time in the bathroom that night doing something. I wasn't sure, but the next morning on April 1st, they kept asking me if I was going to be brushing my teeth and when I was going to be brushing my teeth, and I didn't know what that was all about until I squeezed the Gleam or Aim or whatever the toothpaste was. It was kind of a green, but as I opened up that tube of toothpaste, I squeezed out this brown gunky stuff, and they had carefully used, I don't know if they used toothpicks or what, but they got some raisins stuck down in the tube of toothpaste. And when Daddy squeezed the toothpaste and was like ready to throw the toothpaste away, I heard this giggling outside the bathroom door. Well, April Fool's Day, the way we practice it, is how you can make a fool out of somebody, how you can play a trick on them. But as I understand it, the original April Fools were those who were not willing to change with the times, were not willing to agree to the reality as it really was before them. As I understand it, the world operated on the Julian calendar for years and years and years. Julius Caesar maybe was the one who brought that forward. And the problem with the Julian calendar is they had not calculated the way the Earth goes around the sun and how long a year really was. And so they were not celebrating things in the right season. For example, Easter in the spring was starting to move its way towards the summer. And that's because they didn't have the right calculation on how long the year was. I think they were off by a few hours, maybe just a few minutes. But over time, that was problematic. And so in the late 1500s, the Gregorian calendar came out. I believe Pope Gregory within the Catholic Church was given credit for this, or came up with this new calendar. And it actually had a new system of calculation that was accurate by adding every 4 years an extra day to February, what we call leap day. Now, what was unusual is the original calendar, as I understand it, had April 1st as the first day of the year under the Julian calendar. And with the Gregorian calendar, they moved it to the day we celebrate as our first day of the year, January 1. And so we play April Fool's jokes on people because we want them to look foolish, and that might have a tie-in on who the original April Fools were. The original April Fools were those who continued to stick to the Julian calendar even though the Gregorian calendar was proven to be accurate. And they were April Fools because they kept celebrating April 1st as the first day of the year. In fact, even though the calendar was adopted in 1582 or 1584, the Gregorian calendar, some people, like even the people in the country of Turkey, stuck with the Julian calendar. They were called April Fools because they kept saying April 1st was the first day of the year and that the old system worked. Until I think it was 27 or 1947, finally Turkey was the last country to agree to go by the Gregorian calendar. Well, that brings me to think about how we might apply the observance of foolishness and maybe not being fools and not being called April Fools ourselves. It seems that when we practice wisdom in terms of forgiveness, we can say, I am going to be foolish. Foolish the way Jesus Christ taught about offering forgiveness, offering kindness and compassion to your enemies. There is a phrase in Scripture that invites us to be fools for Christ. And so, some ways I want to adopt the idea of being foolish in terms of forgiving people, showing kindness, compassion, patience towards those who may not even be deserving of it. But I also wonder if the original warning around being an April Fool, not adopting the right calendar, not really understanding how things really work, is also something we might consider now. That to be foolish today in the COVID-19 virus pandemic is to not wash your hands, to go out in public, to meet with a group of people, get closer than 6 feet to people. It's really foolish. It really causes harm for people, especially those most vulnerable in their health. And we don't want to be fools in that way. We also want to, as we're adopting new ideas, to say, I don't want to be a fool sticking with the old ways of thinking. I want to be flexible. I want to be able to learn and adapt and accept new teachings, new understandings. I think the true wisdom that we might have is to be open in our hearts, open in our minds to say, there is something for me to learn, even if I'm resistant to it at first. We don't want to be April Fools in that way. Those are my thoughts. It was April 1st. I thought, I preached this sermon a couple times, I think back in February, but it wasn't recorded. So that's my April Fool's sermon today. And I hope you have a great day. Be foolish in the right way, but avoid people. Don't shake hands. Keep your distance. We need to not be fools so that we can get through this pandemic, so that our healthcare providers are able to do the work that they're doing, and we don't flood the ER and the hospitals with all the people getting COVID-19 virus right now. Have a great day and stay safe.